Hi everyone, Cheryl here, quickly to show you a bit of a layout I did today that was one of those ones that started off really well and then went off the rails in multiple ways, multiple times, and I thought why not just still show it to you anyway and give you a bit of an idea as to how I brought it back, where it went sideways, how I saved it, all those fun things. So I do have this sped up quite a bit because it was getting rather long. Hopefully it's not sped up so much that you can't get an idea of what I'm doing. I did briefly show you a photo of my hastily sketched version of Char's sketch. But you can see that. I'll link it below, and if you go to the blog, if you go to scrapstorian.com, you can see it, or if you go to Instagram, or Scrapstorian Instagram, pardon me, you can see it there too. So right now, I was just using this piece of paper that is left over from a few weeks ago. I think I had used the packaging technique to do some blue and yellow watercoloring. I was just using this to put down the leftover color that I didn't need, and I just hung on to the paper because I like the way the colors look together, and I knew I'd use it for something. So right now, what I wanted to do to add some texture to the colors that were already there is just a sort of cross-hatch, sketchy kind of stamp that's from an old Bo Bunny background stamp set. So I stamped that in a few different colors of Distress ink, and I'll put the details of the colors of Distress ink and stuff like that I used on the blog, so you can look for a link below if you want some more details like that. I'll try and link the supplies I'm using, but a lot of these are some random pieces that I found while reorganizing some of my collection one day last week. So these are definitely some older pieces. Those square cut aparts are from Simple Stories. And speaking of older, this felt really old school to me today. I felt like I hadn't done this in a long time to pull out my inking tools and put some Distress ink on the edge of those papers, but it seemed to go with the layout and go with the idea that I was basing everything off of, so why not? I was adding some layers behind the photo, trying to get in a few different pieces there. This pink camera that I'm cutting out now from that square cut apart, I really wanted to use this, and it sort of worked, but there was something about it as the layout progressed that wasn't working. Looking back now, I feel like something about the colors in there may have been part of what was throwing things off later on. Let me know. I'd love to hear in the comments, actually, if you think I should have left it where it was. I'm super curious, but we shall see. So, I am definitely buying a roll of foam tape because, oh my goodness, I forgot how much I dislike putting down those individual little squares and then peeling the backing off those individual little squares of dimensional tape. I may just try and bribe my kids to do that job for me. They could have made a couple of bucks on this layout alone. So I'm just rearranging the little chipboard frames that I'd put some of the smaller photos in. Char's sketch, you'll notice, has 3 photos across the middle of the page. And again, because I had gone through and reorganized some older supplies last week, I came across a few leftover bits and pieces of some older collections. And you know when you get to the point where there's only a few little pieces left and you'd like to use them, but they don't really go with a lot of things. So I pulled out a couple of those Simple Stories chipboard frames, a couple of Simple Stories cut aparts, and I thought that there'd be a way that I could use a few things like that all together. So there's the camera right now. It's sitting up in the top left corner there behind 2 of the photo frames. And it does work there right now. But later on when I start adding in some different elements, something about it just isn't quite right. Sorry if you can hear a lot of traffic driving by. It's a sort of gray, rainy day, but right now it's lovely to have the windows open in my scrapbook room where I'm recording this voiceover, and I don't really want to close them and be melting in here. It's really nice to have the cool air coming in and be listening to the rain a little bit, but I know that means you can hear people driving by, so pardon me, and now excuse me because I have to cough. That happens whenever I do voiceovers because I talk and talk and talk and talk and don't drink any water, and we're only 4 minutes in. So it wasn't my best idea to use the ruler to tear off the edges of the paper while everything was stuck down, I will admit. But again, that's the theme of this page. When things go wrong, what do we do? So again, after I decided to take off all of the white edges, I was thinking that I wanted to add more yellow. You can see some of the yellow that's in the background, but I really wanted more. So I pulled off all those edges. And again, with the old school inking the edges of the paper. I know it's silly to call that old school. People do it all the time. I'm just sort of joking because I haven't done it in a while. So I really like how the yellow background paper worked out. That brought out the yellow that was already in there. And then I pulled out some more distress ink and wanted to just see if a kind of tone on tone, very light stamping of the same background stamp would show up. Don't worry, I didn't ruin my distress ink pad. I know it looks like I did, but I promise you it's okay. Yeah, so you can't really see that stamping. It just provides a little bit of, for lack of a better word, messiness to the really plain background paper, just to kind of tie it in to all the texture that's on the white paper. So right now, oh, that was extra loud outside. Whoops. So right now I am auditioning, I guess. I'm going through several different packs of die cuts. I pulled out, the ones you see on the layout right now are from an older Dear Lizzie collection. I was looking for anything and everything that had yellow in it. So I pulled out all the things I could find that were yellow. I pulled out lots and lots and lots of yellow. So there are some from Jelly Bean Soup, that one that looks sort of like a color wheel. Those little hexagons are Jelly Bean Soup. Yeah, the older Dear Lizzie collection, those are the ones that say Live Today. And then some Pink Fresh Studio, that's the one that say Stories of Today. What else did I audition here? Some labels. A little light bulb. Yeah, I really wanted more yellow. So I just went through a couple of different sets of die cuts, pulled out whatever I could think of, or pardon me, whatever I could find that was yellow. These are some, I think, Paige Evans flowers. Pulled out some yellow there. There wasn't a lot in there that was sort of the right tone, and in the end I didn't really end up finding a way to make the flowers work. But it seemed worth a try at the time. Sorry, I rearranged my camera and my cutting mat setup a little bit to move the camera mount higher to prevent me from sticking my head under it all the time. I know we had this conversation last time I filmed a process video, and I was apologizing for you watching my big head through most of the video. But I just did that today, just before filming this video. So I clearly, as you can tell, haven't gotten used to having to move the layout further up onto my table and have things a little bit further away from me. So my tendency to pull them down closer is quite evident here, because unfortunately part of the layout is cut off. So I will get things back in the right position so that you can see everything that's happening, hopefully soon. So a few of these die cuts here at the bottom, you can see that I'm kind of stapling those in place and just trying to get a sense of if I like where that little cluster of things, how that little cluster is building. And then I'm playing with that Stories of Today die cut from Pink Fresh Studio for the title. And it was quite funny as I was going along, the number of times that I thought that I would just stick something down and then think, oh, well, I put ink on the edges of a bunch of other things. I probably should put ink on the edges of this. So it was just, odd that sometimes I was forgetting. That poor little light bulb, I tried it out in many, 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 many places, and it just didn't work. The color was right, but really there was just no purpose for a light bulb. That little smile die cut from Pink Fresh Studio kind of sort of works. It ends up leaving later on, as you can see. As you will see, pardon me. So we're getting close to the point where I thought, I'm not sure where else to go. So at this point I was debating what else to add, whether this really was the title I wanted. And I was just cutting off the edge of the label right there and then adding more ink. I used a lot of ink. I guess I was really missing the Tim Holtz Distress ink today and just decided to go all in and just add it wherever. And yes, that is me reusing that itty bitty piece of label that I cut off. Yeah, so I took a break because I wasn't really sure where things were going, and now I'm back auditioning more die cuts and trying to figure them out and see what else I can do. So this is the pack of die cuts from, the old-ish, I don't know how old they are, Dear Lizzie collection that I had taken out a little bit ago. and then put back. So I'm just trying to see if any of those will work. And so I'm considering putting the date, this was June of 2018, in those large numbers right there in that space. And I had a feeling this date would be 6/6/2018, but I thought, I should really double check before I stick that down. And I wish I had thought about it more before sticking that down, because, well, I won't ruin it for you, but get ready. This is where the mistakes start happening. We're getting there. And the funny thing is, it wasn't until right about now that I realized there was part of the title, Stories of Today, that that I hadn't adhered down very well. And so I put some glue on it right about here and stuck it down even more. And that little tag, I wasn't loving the words on the tag, but I felt like something in that corner to give it a little more height, or something to kind of bring things up there would work. And so I was just trying to see what would fit up there, and trying to see what other things could work. I wanted a tiny little bit of pink down in the bottom right cluster, so that little post office sort of note, or post office box, pardon me, trying to see what could fit. So I'm just, at this point, something is bothering me about the page itself, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. So I'm trying all kinds of different things to see what it is that's bugging me about the page. So we're getting close to break number 2, because at this point, like I said, something's not quite right. So when we come back soon, you will see, aha, here we are. This is where things have really gone wrong. Now you see what's happening. So I took a break, checked the date of this photo, and it was June 6, 2018. So I decided to stick down all of those big numbers with glue, liquid glue, of course. And then as soon as they were stuck down, I realized I don't like them, and I needed them to go away. And so I had to peel them all up. So that was fun. And I needed to get rid of them. So this is part of me wanting to talk about, this is why I was joking about when the layout goes left, you go right. Because at this point I thought, well, this is where a sort of messy, textured, mixed media, imperfect background, I guess, is my friend. So now I'm even peeling up the Stories of Today die cut and ruining that in the process. Oh well. All the numbers are gone. You can see I finally found a way to fit in the tag up at the top left. So that one's gone. That one is in. I'm trying to turn off the notifications because there are text messages coming in like crazy, because Shara, Brandy, and Rosa have just discovered a new collection that apparently I need to go look at, and my text messages are just exploding. So my words are all jumbled, and now I'm so confused. But anyway, back to this page. So I finally figured out the die cuts I wanted up at the top left, where you can see the tag and the ampersand and the little bird and some cute things up there. And I figured out the cluster I wanted in the bottom right. But that leaves me with this area right in the middle of the page, sort of under all the photos, where I'm now trying to peel off the remnants of those numbers and trying to get off whatever sort of not torn bits of paper I can. So, I mean, clearly you can see that I have some pieces of paper here that are torn. I also took out the camera die cut at this point. So then I thought, well, if I have some torn bits of paper, and you can see the white underneath the ink and the paint underneath the photo. There's my head again. Oh my goodness. I decided to make the torn pieces of paper look a little more purposeful. So I got out my scissors, scratched in a few areas to make everything look a little more, honest to goodness, my head. I promise you guys, this is not the first time I've done a process video, but clearly I don't know where my big head is and where my camera is. I'll get used to all these things again. Clearly I'm still out of practice. So after deciding to make it look more purposeful and put in a few torn areas, and again, you know, try and give it some intention and work with what I had at this point, I got out my adhesive eraser and tried to just get rid of as much leftover glue as I could, so that that wouldn't impact whatever I decided to do next. At this point I didn't know what that would be, but something was going to come next. So I removed as much glue as I could. And again, with a background like this isn't a pattern paper where having something torn is so painfully obvious. This is a background that I made that I can choose to make in any way I want. So it's a little more adaptable. That's not quite the word I'm looking for, but I hope you understand what I mean. So I went back to the Distress ink and decided to just kind of rub some over those areas so that the places where the paper had torn and where it just looked really white underneath wouldn't look so bright white. It didn't make a huge difference, but it did kind of make me feel better and helped a little. And then I decided to add some more ink to the one spot under the photo where I had some tearing from removing the title. And I also end up taking some of that ink around the die cuts. This is where the infamous camera sticker came up. Very curious what some of you would do if you were in the middle of a layout like this. Would you just leave everything on the page even though you didn't like it? Would you cover it up? Or would you peel it off like I did and just kind of figure it out? I'm always curious what people would do. So this is where I start taking some of the blue over these die cuts. And it sort of, I don't know, grunges them up a little bit. That's not even a thing, but we'll go with it. Yeah, and so I took some blue and some yellow over these areas and just sort of messed them up a bit and gave everything a bit more of a distressy, kind of messier feel to go with the fact that things were already torn and ripped and coming apart. There are no rules when I'm scrapbooking. Clearly we know this. This is not new information to any of you. Now I'm just going to clean up all of my discarded, broken, torn numbers and pieces. And so then I went back to the original stamp so that I could stamp a few places right there on the bottom. And I did ink up the stamp again to think about putting it somewhere up at the top, but I changed my mind. I didn't really see where I would do it, so I sort of felt like I didn't need it. I kind of just left it sitting to the side in case I wanted to, but at this point I thought I was okay without it. And I think we're just about getting to the end. If you can believe it, there is an actual end to this layout. So what you'll see here in a few minutes, I did pause the camera coming up so that I could figure out what I wanted to use for a title. Believe it or not, there is an end in sight for this layout. And so I was worried that I had ruined my ink pad. I don't know if you noticed when I said that I didn't ruin my ink pad because I had the blue color on my yellow ink pad. But when I sort of was cleaning it off on a piece of scrap paper, I thought, well, I need some yellow circles, so let's just punch those out. So I added a few of those around the page, and then I went for some enamel dots and figured out the title and where I was going to journal. So in a few minutes you will see a few still shots of how that turned out. And I don't want to say I salvaged this page. That sort of makes it sound like I'm really unhappy with the finished product, and I'm not. It was an interesting endeavor for the day. Nothing really. This isn't the page I thought I was going to make. Let's say that for sure. I am happy with how it turned out. It just had a lot of bumps in the road, because that's how it goes some days. So I don't know if you'll get to, if I have, I'm not sure if I filmed at this point me going through my little random drawer of enamel dots before I took a break to do the title or not. But yeah, I'm just fitting in the last of those little squares from fixing my ink pad. Ah yes, there's my drawer of enamel dots that have no packaging and no real home for now. Those are the random ones I'm trying to use up. So yeah, here's an idea of how the page ended up. I put some blue enamel dots around the cluster at the top left, a few pink ones around the yellow circles that you see around the line of photos, and then there are also some blue ones at the bottom right. So that's how I went right when this layout went left. Sorry my head was in your way, but I do appreciate you watching. I will get used to my setup again. Have a great day.